Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving right into a seriously profound realization. Think about it. Every single person you've ever met, and everyone you ever will meet, has this giant black hole where the first few years of their life should be. We're going to treat this whole thing like a cold case today, investigating the mystery of your missing early years to figure out exactly where all that time went. Let's get into it.
You actually lived an entire life before the age of 3. Seriously, you were born. You opened your eyes for the very first time. You heard your mother's voice. You tasted food. You took those wobbly first steps. And you said your very first word. And yet, you remember absolutely none of it. Not a single solitary moment.
Okay, let's dive into this because, most people assume the answer is just incredibly simple. We kind of just assume our baby brains weren't ready yet, right? That we were simply too young to hit the record button. Well, that assumption is completely wrong. The reality is far stranger than you'd expect, because your baby brain wasn't failing to record your life at all. It was actually recording everything. Those experiences were absolutely there, but something came along and destroyed them. To really kick off our investigation, we got to go back over a century. Back in 1905, Sigmund Freud became the very first person to put an official name to this universal phenomenon. He coined the term infantile amnesia to describe how adults are just completely unable to retrieve episodic memories from before they were roughly 2 to 4 years old. But wait a minute, how do we know for sure those memories were ever actually there to begin with?
Well, we know this for an absolute fact thanks to this incredibly elegant experiment from the 1980s. Psychologist Carolyn Rovi Collier over at Rutgers University devised a brilliant setup. First, she tied a little ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile hanging right above their crib. Naturally, the babies quickly figured out that kicking made the mobile move, and, they loved it. But here is the truly amazing part. When she brought those exact same babies back days or even weeks later, they remembered. They started kicking immediately. Even 2-month-old babies held that memory for a couple of days, and the 6-month-olds remembered for weeks. So infant brains totally can learn, store information, and recall it. The catch? Those memories just don't last. By adulthood, every single trace is wiped clean.
So let's look at culprit 1, the underdeveloped hardware.
For decades, scientists couldn't fully explain why this wiping process happens. But slowly, the pieces started falling into place when we began looking at our physical biology. To understand the hardware side of things, we have to look at the hippocampus. It's this small, curved structure buried deep inside your brain. Think of it like the ultimate engine of memory formation. It's the exact biological machinery that allows you to take a lived experience, like say a birthday party, or a conversation, or a walk in the rain, and seamlessly encode it into a specific episode that you can replay in your mind later on.
Now, when you compare an adult's memory hardware to an infant's, the structural difference is just massive. In adults, the hippocampus works perfectly in tandem with the prefrontal cortex to tag, store, and retrieve these episodes. But in infants, this system is severely underdeveloped. The connections are literally still under construction. Specifically, there's a key region called the dentate gyrus, which acts as this crucial gateway for new memories, and isn't fully wired up until somewhere between ages 2 and 4. So your infant brain could absolutely form short-term memories, like knowing exactly how to kick to move that crib mobile. It just didn't have the biological wiring yet to move them into permanent long-term storage.
Moving on to culprit 2, the cost of growth. But hold on a second, because that hardware limitation, it's really only half the story. And honestly, what comes next is even stranger. This brings us to a truly bizarre discovery made back in 2014 by neuroscientists Sheena Jocelyn and Paul Franklin at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. They were taking a close look at a process called neurogenesis. See, in the very first years of your life, your hippocampus is producing brand new neurons at a completely extraordinary rate. And this is essential, right? Because those new brain cells are exactly what wire up the circuits you're going to rely on for the rest of your life. But the researchers had this almost absurd hypothesis. What if the very process that builds your brain is exactly what destroys your memories? They suspected this massive biological construction project came with an enormous cost.
And this brilliantly illustrates what they found. To test their theory, they ran experiments on mice, and the outcomes published in the journal Science were just staggering. When they artificially increased neurogenesis in adult mice, those adult mice actually started forgetting things they had previously learned. And get this, when they intentionally slowed down neurogenesis in infant mice, those infant mice held on to their early memories significantly longer than normal. It points to this deeply counterintuitive reality. Every single time a new neuron integrates into a circuit, it actively disrupts the existing connections that were already there, the very connections holding on to your earliest memories.
Think of it like this. Your brain kept building new rooms, but it was tearing down the old walls in the process. Your baby brain wasn't too weak to hold memories, it was just way too busy growing. The exact same explosion of new neurons required to build your mind actively overwrote the memories stored inside it. Your earliest experiences weren't lost because they were never saved. They were literally overwritten by your own growth. Crazy, right?
Which brings us to culprit 3, the birth of you.
All right, so we've got our biological suspects, but now we need to shift our focus from clinical neuroscience over to developmental psychology. Because to form what scientists call autobiographical memory, which is basically the kind of memory where you are the main character in an experience you can replay in your head, you need something we all totally take for granted. You need a sense of self. Developmental psychologists Mark Howe and Mary Courage argued in the late 1990s that this is a critical missing piece for infants. Just look at the classic rouge test. You put a little dot of rouge on a baby's nose and place them right in front of a mirror. Before roughly 18 to 24 months, babies treat that reflection like it's just another child. They don't reach for the mark on their own face. But after 18 months, they do. They recognize the person in the mirror is them. That precise moment, the birth of self-recognition, closely tracks with the earliest age that autobiographical memories can actually begin to form. You can't remember being a baby, partly because there was literally no you yet to package those experiences into a cohesive story.
Which leads us to an incredibly jarring question. When you look at your old family albums, is the baby in those photos actually you? I mean, if you had no continuous sense of self as a narrator, and the physical brain that held your earliest experiences literally rewired itself beyond recognition by tearing down its own walls, is that person you, or is it someone else entirely? Someone who lived in your body, but whose mind was completely disassembled and rebuilt, neuron by neuron, into the adult watching this explainer right now. It's wild to think about.
Now for our final suspect, culprit 4, the power of words.
Let's look at the final piece of this puzzle. We've talked biology, we've talked psychology, now we need to look at communication. This comes directly from the groundbreaking research of developmental psychologist Catherine Nelson. Nelson spent years studying how children form lasting memories, and she realized something profound. She said, "Language gives memory a skeleton. Without it, experiences are like water with no container." See, before you could speak, your entire early life was encoded as just raw sensory impressions, just a chaotic rush of sounds, textures, emotions, and light. But without words to organize those impressions, they simply had no framework to attach to. They existed purely in the moment, and then they vanished like water slipping through your fingers. It's only once you start having actual conversations about past events that your ability to form lasting memories completely transforms.
Now, what's really interesting about this data is that this isn't just a theory. Psychologist Ki Wong at Cornell University proved that the average age of your earliest memory actively varies depending on your culture. Notice the differences here. In Western cultures, where parents frequently narrate their children's experiences and ask questions to build a personal story, the earliest memories tend to start around age 3.5. But look at the Maori of New Zealand. Their rich oral tradition places an extraordinary emphasis on personal history and storytelling, pushing their average first memory all the way back to age 2.5. Conversely, in some East Asian cultures where early childhood narratives focus a little less on the individual, first memories tend to start closer to age 4. The culture you grow up in literally shapes the container of your memory.
Finally, becoming who you are.
So we've got all 4 pieces of the puzzle on the board. Let's bring everything together to see how these elements synthesize into the ultimate reality of becoming who you are today. So the crucial point is that it wasn't just one thing that wiped your early memories, it was everything, all at once. Your earliest years are a black hole because of this perfect storm. Your hippocampus simply wasn't ready to build long-term storage. Even as it started trying, a massive flood of new neurons tore through the circuits, literally overwriting the data. Psychologically, you lacked a distinct concept of self to anchor your experiences to a main character. And linguistically, you had absolutely no language to act as a structural skeleton for all those raw sensory moments.
Which brings us to our final, provocative realization for today's explainer. Did your brain have to destroy the infant you simply to build the adult you? The answer to why you can't remember your earliest days isn't that your brain failed or that it was too simple. It's that your brain was doing something infinitely more important than remembering. It was becoming you. And that required, quite literally, destroying the person who came before. It was a necessary sacrifice for your growth. Thanks for joining me on this one, and I really hope this leaves you with a brand new perspective on those lost early years.